Go live with maximum definition. I didn't mean to hide that. I meant to close that. Quit. That's quit. My glasses are smudgy. I'm going to clean them live. That's how the live show works. I do things live, and I feel like I'm hearing someone sawing down a tree outside live. So this is what's fun about this format, is you get to hear stuff in real time as I do. Good morning. Happy Friday. This live show, I am coming on to uninspired and bored. And I was sitting at my desk and I was like, what am I going to talk about? And I have one topic from our friend of the show, Simo Mac, a good friend of mine who lives in Brisbane, Australia. And so I was like, okay, cool. I got that topic. That's good. I got that handled. That one is taken care of. And then I don't know what else I'm going to talk about. And I might not talk about much of anything. This might be the world's first 5-minute live show. It could be very, very quick. Because here's the problem that I'm encountering. This is creamy Earl Grey tea with skim milk in it. That's not the problem I'm encountering. That's one of the things that's going very well in my life right now, is I have somewhat hot tea. It's got some milk in it. I'm honoring my British roots. I'm just going to read you some of these titles. I was like, I have this AI, artificial intelligence, EA, executive assistant. I also have an executive assistant who's amazing and could never be replaced by this dumbass robot that I'm looking at over here. But this is spun up in Claude Code, and it's a great little device because what I've done is I've fed it my book, I've fed it like my writing, I've fed it my client avatar, I've put all that stuff in it. I'm like, synthesize this, discern the sort of person that I work with, discern my work, discern the basis and foundation of everything I do. Now make some suggestions. AI is really good at that for the most part. Precise synthesis. And I was like, all right, well, I'm going live. I'm not really sure what to talk about. Give me some suggestions. And so the suggestions are like, the tax you pay for being the smartest person in the room. I've already worked on this. Everyone finds you impressive. No one finds you. Half second before you get articulate. You can't take a win. What else do we have? The same wall in every company. My team won't move me. It's faster if I just do it myself. These are all like fine suggestions. And they all feel to me like just hammering the same point over and over and over again. Like I feel like I've talked about these a million times already. And it's not to say that they're not good or precise or that they don't speak to something that really matters, but this is the experience I keep coming up against time and again as I try to use AI for like to create something that I find inspiring. Like I feel like it's good for synthesis, but it's not so good at like creating something new for me, or at least I don't find it to be. All of these things are fine. Let's just dive into one of these and see. I'm going to see if I can discern like why this is so boring to me. My best people keep leaving. Okay, first of all, that's boring to me because I already talked about that a bunch. So why are we putting that back in front of the same people? Culture, career pathing, better retention, due state interviews, the HR shelf answer, the recurring thing. You develop someone, they get great, they get right around the moment, they're genuinely yours, they leave, not the mediocre ones, the best ones on repeat. It's all so precisely laid out by this AI robot. It all makes sense, and I am bored reading it. And I wonder how you feel as you listen to me drone on about this. But more to the point, as you, whoa, there's Pongo. Let me just close that door so we can get some heat going in here. Come on in. You gotta come in. You can't do both. I'll leave the door half open for you. Okay. Then I'm gonna sit at the door like a creep. Where were we? I wonder how you feel. I wonder how you feel looking at AI, getting answers. My experience has been a tight arc. It's been like very inspired. Oh, this is exciting. Oh, there's so much possibility. And then the possibilities had a very short half-life for me, at least. I still have friends that are building programs like you wouldn't believe to do stuff and to leverage, but I'm not finding that leverage that interesting anymore, because what I'm noticing is that there's this wisdom in, there's a digression. Prepare to be digressed. There's this wisdom in civic planning where expanding a highway, like if you have a highway that is congested, expanding that highway from 4 lanes to 6 lanes does not solve the congestion. Well, that's weird, Adam. You must be stupid. Incorrect. Sometimes I am. But what happens is what has been found to be the case is you expand the lanes on the highway, and then people are like, sweet, the lanes on the highway have been expanded, so that highway is now less congested, and now more people use it, and then you're back up at capacity. So this is a version of the adage, work expands to fill the time. The more we have, the more we use, and then we end up with the same amount. Some of you, hopefully, provided I still have a few listeners my age or older, will remember when email was introduced. And when email was introduced, it was like this amazing thing. Like, oh, this is going to change everything. We're going to have so much more time because we don't have to be on the phone. We don't have to be in so many meetings. We can just email. Now, emails are awful. You have 6 billion of them every single day that you have to answer or respond to or look at or think about or do something with. And it doesn't feel like email is reducing the amount of work we have to do. It feels like email is just creating more clutter in our lives. And so this is my experience with AI. And I think a lot of people are going to find this to be the case as we continue to work with it and to use it to spin up to create more productivity. Is it allows us to leverage ourselves more, meaning I can do more with less energy, but all of that creation, all of that leverage, oh, my camera's going to do this bullet time thing. All of that creation and leverage happens over top of whatever stories I have internally about how I need to spend my time, how I need to be productive, my inability to be still, my inability to be bored. If I'm not moving ahead, then I'm falling behind. You know, all of those stories they don't get touched at all by my use of AI. In fact, they inform my use of AI, and they inform it unconsciously. And so where that leaves me is, sure, I create more leverage, but I'm just gonna, just like that highway that got expanded, I'm just gonna fill that with doing more stuff. And I see this all over the place. I'm not sure if you've experienced this in your own life yet, or if you witnessed this in the lives of your friends or coworkers or the company you work at or whatever, but people are becoming more productive, and then they're filling the time that gives them with even more productivity. So it's sort of like all that's really happening is it's like you got another gear on your car or your bike, and you can now do that even more. And that's cool if the measure of success for you at the end of your life is going to be how much stuff did I get done. But if you listen to interviews from people that are old, which I imagine is hard for people these days because they talk slow, and we don't have much capacity to be with slow anymore. But if you listen to interviews or if you read about like people passing away and their thoughts, it's pretty much never like, man, my life was exactly the way it was that I wanted it to be. I got so much done. It's always more regret about like not spending more time appreciating what they had, not spending more time with family, not spending more time slowing down. You know, there's a very, very consistent theme. And my contention and my own experience for myself is that this isn't to denigrate AI, and I'm also not going to denigrate email. Email's fantastic, as is AI, but it's that we don't do a lot to discern anything underneath the surface as we reach for these tools. And then so the risk is we just are like, yes, it's going to solve everything. We speed up, and now we're running on an even faster treadmill without actually creating anything different. So that's one of the things I'm finding very, very uninspiring and boring, and finding it hard to get inspired with regards to AI. I'm going to bring up a couple thoughts I have about. This is like kind of where my most recent thinking on AI has arrived at through the lens of leadership and transformational work. So I've got some bullet points. Are you guys ready for bullet points? Pew, pew. Okay. So bullet point one. I wish I had a chart that I could draw on. That'd be better, but I don't. Bullet point one is that AI provides access to fast, easy answers, analysis, and synthesis. And so what that does is it narrows the competency gap. I'm going to explain and elaborate on that. So historically, we didn't have a machine to do this for us. And let's go way back, actually. Let's go way, 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 way back. So way back in the day, we didn't have calculators. At best, we had a device like an abacus. And what that meant was that the people that were able to hold math in their head better and work out complex problems and could hold the complexity of a mathematical equation in their mind better than other people had an advantage. And that advantage could be leveraged to succeed, thrive, create results, do good in careers, hold positions in companies and stuff that other people could not. And then this device called the calculator was invented. And the calculator allowed all of those formulas, all of that math to be offloaded. That was no longer required by a human. And so once the calculator came in, the competency gap that being really good at math and not being as good at math, it flattened. These people that formerly couldn't hold the position because they weren't so good at math now were brought up. Now, it didn't completely close the gap. Someone who understood the math at a very deep level could kind of better understand the context in which a problem was showing up. They could better understand, well, why is this equation more important than that one? So there was still like benefit to their competency and their understanding and all that, but it was flattened. It was made smaller. AI does the same thing for most of our synthesis and thinking. Anytime someone says, hey, here's a 10-page article, have a look at this, give this a read, and give me your thoughts. Boy, is it ever tough. I don't know about you, but I find it really tough not to run that through AI now. Because AI cuts all that work away. I no longer have to do the hard work of reading 10 pages, which takes time, which has an opportunity cost where I'm not doing something else. I no longer have to read the first page and hold whatever that said in my mind at the same time as the 10th page and sort of allow those to synthesize. I don't have to really use my brain to do much of any of that. I can just plug it into AI and say, give me the bullet points. And then I can say, well, here are my thoughts, compare and contrast. And then in a way, we can say, like, tell me what I'm thinking about this. Tell me my thoughts about this thing, rather than generating that ourselves. So that's like a generalized version of the calculator. The calculator flattened the competency gap for math. AI flattens the competency gap for complex thinking, which includes math, but is not limited to math. So it's math, it's like grammatical structures in sentences, it's writing essays, it's anything that requires some degree of complexity in our thought process. Flattened. So that's bullet point one. Bullet point two, as that gap narrows, the traditional leadership advantage of thinking faster, synthesizing better, producing sharper answers, so that's all the stuff that's been flattened. As that flattening happens, that leadership advantage becomes less distinctive. And what that means is that leadership starts to look smoother and more standardized and less differentiated. On the whole, there's probably like a raising of the floor, but also a lowering of the ceiling. It gets mushed into this. And if you are someone who has historically like enjoyed reading, and some of the reading you've done has been online, you've almost certainly noticed this. Like what I notice is almost everyone's writing now, it has like, get ready for some big ass words. It has better rhetoric, meaning it's written in a more compelling way that calls me into its point better and makes the point more effectively. It's just most writing has become more rhetorical, better at convincing or bringing me along to the point and pulling me into the writing. Because AI is able to synthesize, this is the sort of writing that's most compelling. Ergo, when this person asks me to write a compelling piece or write a piece that'll grab people on social media, it's going to use that. And because everyone has turned to this, you're seeing that everywhere. And so the floor has been brought up. So, leadership, this is happening in leadership across the board. So that's point 2. It's flattened. Leadership is smoother. And when I say leadership, I'm going to go beyond that. It's really done that to expression, I think, because a lot of people are turning to their own expression, e.g., for example, music, art, decision making, which is a form of your expression, verbalization or written expression. Those are ways that you express yourself. So our expression, at least where it's published, has been flattened a lot. In this format, like, I don't yet know a way I can run this through AI. And frankly, I tried to at the start of the show and it sucked balls. So that didn't work. Sucked balls is not a statement that a lot of AI devices are yet putting in. Maybe that's a way that we could determine if it's working. Is this AI generated this interview? No, Adam's using terrible terms in terms of rhetoric, so we don't have to worry about that. Sidebar, isn't rhetoric a lovely word? I like the cadence of it. I like that it's spelled R-H-E-T-O-R-I-C, rhetoric, rhetorical rhetoric. I also like the fact that, I don't know what these two forms are called, but like the shorter form is pronounced rhetoric. It's like quick. And then the longer form is rhetorical. I enjoy those things. Okay, so we've got 1 and 2, right? AI provides fast, easy answers, and in doing so, narrows the competency gap, narrows the leadership gap. Bullet point 3. What AI cannot do is access the underlying being that shapes a leader's behavior, choices, impact, experience that people have, expression, et cetera, et cetera. I'm putting this specific to leaders because that's the domain I'm interested in, as is the people I work with. But you can think of this across the board, anyone doing anything. AI can't get at that. And I'm going to explain why with the further bullet points. And then there's going to be at least some people that are going to disagree with me. And then I'm going to explain why they're wrong. And then they're going to continue to disagree with me. And then there will be. That's how it's going to go. That's what we're going to do. So my assertion here is AI cannot get at your identity. And part of the reason for that is because your identity is the thing from which the questions you ask AI, it's the thing out of which your questions arise. So it's sort of like, oh, no, but I ask AI to reflect that to me. Yeah, but your identity absorbs all of that. You receive everything you get from an AI conversation, and everything you put into an AI conversation all happens through that identity. And so it's sort of like a fish trying to use the ocean it swims in to see the ocean it swims in. It inherently cannot work. Okay, here's the most important part, I think. Bullet point 4 is that changing that structure, changing the underlying identity you have. So the identity you have is sort of like the part of you that's like, I would never be selfish. And as a result of that, that creates a particular life where you have a whole bunch of results, but you cannot have any result for which a willingness to feel the experience like you're selfish would be a necessary part, as an example. Or it's like, I would never put someone into a situation where they feel uncomfortable. That's just who Adam is, right? That's the identity I've created for myself. That identity is almost invisible to me. I can see it around the peripheral. And if that's the identity that I created growing up, then I'm going to have a life that's a reflection of that. I'm going to have a life where there's not all of these situations where I have to make people feel uncomfortable, because I've already got a story underneath all of it that says I'm not the kind of person that does that. And so if you tried to put me in a job where I had to do a bunch of stuff that left people feeling uncomfortable, I would be like, well, that's just not authentic to me. It's not authentic to the identity I've created for myself, but I can't see that. So the way it occurs is just, it's not authentic to me. So to change that underlying structure requires vulnerability and discomfort and relationship and being witnessed. This is the bullet point that's the most challenging. So I'm going to try to, we're going to see if I can get myself through this. Because the first question a lot of people have is like, well, why would you even want to do that? Like, I like the fact that I don't leave people feeling uncomfortable. for the most part, all of us are invested in the identity we currently have about ourselves. We are like, yeah, I'm not willing to be selfish. I'm not willing to show up at a dinner party and not bring a gift. I'm not willing to show up and just say a bunch of stupid stuff without thinking about it first. Totally fine. We're empowered around it. Anything that in your life represents a no-go zone, like a I'm not willing, that determines the boundary between what you can create in your life and all of the results you can't create. Because the results you can't create requires traveling through that no-go zone. This is the nature of the work I walk people through in a leadership conversation, because what's happening there is they've created an organization and a culture and a set of results that are all commensurate with whatever we can do, all of these things, but this stays the same because this is who we are. And when someone wants to create a set of results that are beyond what they're already reliable to create, you know, something like, I want to work half as much and make twice as much money. Let's just assume that's beyond what they want to create. That's going to require touching the thing that they've built their life to avoid touching. AI can't help you with that. So this is the nature of what leadership work does, is we get clear on something you want that's outside of what you're already able to create, because otherwise you don't need help with that. Just do more of what you're already doing. Here's a goal I want that I cannot figure out how to create, and it's outside of my ability to even see how to get there. Great. And then as we look together, it turns out, well, there's this thing that you're unwilling to face, encounter, etc. That's the thing in your way. So now I can come back to my point that I'm making, bullet point 4, AI can't help you with that, because moving through that requires being witnessed, and it requires discomfort and relationship and vulnerability. And here's the big part. Bullet point 5 is AI might simulate elements of that, but it cannot provide the human encounter through which that level of transformation occurs. So the summary here is that with AI, you get to avoid or forego the price of vulnerability and the price of like the real shame or embarrassment or discomfort or cringe or whatever it is that has you avoid this thing anyhow. This is the bullet point people will argue with. So I'm saying the thing is that the cost that AI lets you not have to pay is actually the prize. AI lets you off the hook. You don't have to pay with this discomfort. You don't have to be with the risk of being vulnerable. You get to feel like you're being, oh my God, I'm sharing the most vulnerable things with AI. You know, AI is not going to judge you for it. It might point you in a direction and you might be like, I don't like that, but that's not what we're talking about. That's qualitatively distinct from what I'm talking about. It's a whole different category. So a lot of people, this bullet point 6, a lot of people will insist, no. AI can see, challenge, and transform me in this way. And I would assert what those people are doing is they're comparing it with the ordinary level of reflection of that experience that they have already in their lives. And they're like, I'm as uncomfortable with AI as I am with my friends in the moments in which I allow this kind of vulnerability. And that's distinct from the extraordinary depth of being seen by someone who's like a really skilled coach and can really hold you in the discomfort of that experience. And most people don't have a lot of experience with this. In fact, most people show up to leadership conversations kind of like, all right, I know that I got some stuff I need to work on. Let's work on it. And most crappy leadership conversations are like, let's do it. Let's work on it. The more powerful leadership conversations are the ones where you show up and you're like, I know I got stuff to do. Let's work on it. And the person's like, it seems like you're really eager to get to work. What's that about? I'm like, I'm committed to it. I want to move forward. Okay, yeah, but I noticed that it's like you can't even slow down and just be with me. Well, what's the point of that? Like, that's the conversation that I'm talking about. That's like, it feels like you're not actually moving anywhere if that's your no-go zone. So lots of people are they're engaged in an argument about the fact that AI can do this. And my experience so far is that for every single one of those people, when we create an actual experience of discomfort and vulnerability and being seen, that there is something qualitatively distinct between that and the experience they're creating with their AI bot. Okay, so final thoughts. leaders seeking an edge beyond the flattening of competency. So some leaders are going to be like, cool, it flattened the competency and that's enough. Some leaders are going to be like, that's not enough. I actually want to have a deeper edge. I want to be more sophisticated, more potent. They will increasingly need to turn toward work that develops the identity, who they are, not just what they know and how to perform it. I'm going to give you one example here. I'm going to make this real, I hope. We'll find out. Imagine a leader who is kind and cares about people, and they're very effective. And the feedback that they keep getting when they're courageously doing 360 reviews is, yo, Reggie, you leave people not feeling heard. People don't feel listened to you. So Reggie reads a bunch of books and he takes a bunch of stuff and he like does a bunch of like all of the right, he takes seminars and he learns active listening tools and techniques. And then he comes back and he's like, okay, I'm doing the thing. Yep. Yep. And he's listening to you. And you still feel like this friggin' Reggie doesn't friggin' hear you. Why not? He's doing everything right. In fact, now he's doing it more than most of the other people at work. And yet you're still complaining. I guess the problem must be yours. But it's not, because it's consistent. So now what Reggie can do is he can go to AI and he can say, I'm still having people blah, 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 blah. They're not, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And he can work with the thing, and the AI can be like, well, it seems like you're not really da 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 da, and like, you know, try this. And Reggie can sort of take that in and contemplate it and then go back and try to put that into practice. Here's what AI cannot do. Because if Reggie comes to me, here's what I guarantee is going to happen. He's going to say, Adam, I've done all of these sort of things. I've taken all of this on. I've done this. And I offer a piece of feedback and he pauses and he goes, I agree. Yeah, okay, great. Let's move on. And my job in that moment is to say, you know, it's funny, Reggie, because I just shared that and it doesn't feel like you actually heard me. It feels like you agreed, you synthesized it, and we moved right past it. I'm not feeling heard by you in this moment. And Reggie's going to go, no. I'm okay. Sorry. Yeah, I hear you. I'm going to go, nah, it still doesn't feel like it's actually landing. What's happening right now in this moment between us? Why do I feel this way? What do you make that mean? And Reggie's going to be like, oh, I'm sorry. You know, I'm sorry I didn't feel that way. Blah, blah, blah. Can we move on? No, Reggie, we can't. Because this moment happening right now is the thing. This is the thing you have to be with to unlock this. AI cannot do that because AI is fully palatable for Reggie. And when Reggie says, let's move on, AI might say, well, let's stay here. And it's totally agreeable. And it's not going to judge him. It's not going to leave Reggie feeling like AI is wasting his time or anything like that. And if he does, he just closes it and he's done. So that is the sort of moment that is required for people that want to pass a threshold, that want to cross beyond this and work at this edge beyond the flattening of competency. Here's the final two things I see. One, coaching may become more valuable precisely because it operates beneath the layer that AI can flatten. So AI can flatten competency, but it cannot flatten being. It cannot flatten the work that develops who you are and your story about yourself and what is possible from that story about yourself. AI cannot support you with that because that kind of support requires vulnerability and seeing and witnessing and another human experience. It requires contact whilst being witnessed by another human. AI cannot provide that. And so coaching may become more valuable, but here's the caveat. Whether or not that distinction is sufficiently relevant, desirable, marketable, or valuable to people is an open question. I'm not actually clear on whether that is what matters or not. And this conclusion for me is like the thing that I'm really spending a lot of time researching and sitting with right now. And the metaphor I have for this is of a woman named Bonnie Henry, who is our health, a senior health officer, I guess, chief health officer here in Canada during COVID. I'm a big Bonnie Henry fan. I think she was really remarkable and did a really good job in a challenging circumstance and in a situation where there's absolutely no right answer. Only wrong answers in hindsight, basically. And what I heard her say in an interview is like, there's a point where the right thing to do may be here, but you can't get too far out in front of people. Like if they are not yet able to get on board with the fact that that's the right thing to do, then you can't push that on them, because what'll happen is they'll discount it. They'll say, no, that's nonsense, and they won't do the thing, and then even though that might be the right thing to do, it's not going to happen, and then they lose trust in you and in the institution and in their faith. And so sometimes, yeah, we might be right that the best approach is XYZ, but if all people can see from where they currently stand is ABC, then it doesn't matter about XYZ. And any attempt to force XYZ on them is actually our own agenda and is going to not be effective. And so this is where I'm kind of at with coaching, where I'm like, man, good, profound coaching, like deep leadership work that really shifts the needle for people in this identity-based way, it's never been more of a greater edge. It's at its most potent, but I don't know that people are actually interested in crossing that threshold. My experience is that the fast, easy answers that AI provides us are really satisfying, and they're way less annoying than being in a conversation with someone like me. They're less confronting, they're less vulnerable, they're safer, they're easier, they're on 24/7. You can load up your phone at 3 a.m. and ask the question and feel better. And whilst that won't change any of the underlying identity from which all of that stuff is happening, it provides the illusion in the moment of like a shift. And my experience, generally speaking, is that as like the human design is that we'd really rather, if possible, we'd rather a solution that doesn't require disrupting anything, that like doesn't require disrupting our current lives and how our current lives operate, but gives us a new experience. So what we yearn for, this is why like a magic pill, like that's why it's so addictive, really, so compelling, is because it's like, oh yeah, I don't have to change anything, and I just take this pill and then I'll stop doing that thing I don't like. Easy. I don't have to change my behavior. I don't have to confront any of the stuff underneath the surface of what that behavior is protecting me from facing. I don't have to do any of that. Like if someone came along and sold us a magic spell that allowed us to create the best sex of our lives and fall in love with someone and have the partner of our dreams, almost all of us would buy it, because then we wouldn't have to go through the messiness of intimacy and like what it's like to actually be seen by someone and then judge them and then them judging us, all of that sort of stuff. That's very disruptive. And it's really, when we're in that disruptive, it's confronting and it's annoying and it's obnoxious. And so my experience of people, and especially myself, is that we want to have the result without paying the price. And anything that promises that is an illusion. I guarantee you, because it's like everyone wants to put Dr. Ho's magic ab electrodes on their stomach and have a six-pack, and it doesn't work because there's no effort that you have to expend. There's no cost. You don't have to pay the price, aside from the $39.99 and 4 easy payments and all of that. It doesn't work. And that is true across the board in the universe. It is a universal law, the law of conservation of energy. Energy is neither created nor destroyed. It is simply changed. And so the inherent in the universe is what I'm describing as a fundamental law. Anytime there's the promise of getting something without paying the cost, it's false. And the reason that this edge I'm talking about works is because it costs you something. The cost is it disrupts your life and all of the comfort and the familiarity. But what it provides is the ability to create something new that fundamentally was unavailable from your existing previous structure. And us humans, we don't want to do that. And so I think that we're in a period right now, a little bit, it's something you could call, often I'll refer to it as early stage certainty bubble. Early stage certainty bubble is what happens. Let me just check in here. How much I'm going to give a little context for this. Often I get put in touch with people because someone refers them to me. And the person usually has been referred to me because they're kind of lost or they're struggling or they're not sure what. So we get onto a phone, I reflect some stuff to them, and then usually those people will go and they'll try something new in their life. that is not really something new. It's more like they've rearranged the furniture in their apartment. So they get a new job. They haven't done any of the work I'm talking about, but it's a circumstantial change. It's different. And the early stage certainty bubble is that experience when we've changed something in our lives circumstantially, and it feels different. And we're certain that we've made the shift. We have rounded the corner. Things are going to be different. And at that early stage of certainty, we're alive to everything that is like good about the shift and nothing that is bad. That's the power of novelty. It's sort of like how when you've ever had friends like this where, or maybe been this person yourself, you find the next person after you have a bad breakup or like a series of bad breakups, you find the next person, you're like, this person solves all of my problems. They don't do any of the stuff I hated about my exes. They're so much better. I finally found the one. And then 6 months later, you're like, oh, this person's exactly like all these, but why do I keep getting into relationships like that? So early stage certainty bubble is what happens anytime we have something that kind of, it's basically providing the promise of a fundamental shift, a change fundamentally in the experience you have without any disruption. And I would assert AI and our experience of it right now collectively is still, for a lot of people, for the vast majority of people, in the early stage certainty bubble. It's providing new stuff. It's providing new things. It's providing answers that felt locked away. And it really felt to most of us like the thing missing was I just didn't have the right answer. And if you've ever done any work with a coach like me, you learn pretty quickly that the right answer is it bankrupts itself very quickly because the problem wasn't really the right answer. And so I think we're in this stage where a lot of people are in that early stage of certainty, in the honeymoon phase of it, in the seduction of it. And as time goes on, that's going to start to wear. And I don't know what will come of that. That's what remains to be seen. Will people kind of grow tired of it and then turn back towards the sort of thing that people like me offer? Or will the sort of spiral of being able to continually ask new and new questions of AI and AI continuing to get better and better while never quite crossing the threshold, will that be enough to pull us in perpetually? Like, you never cross the threshold, but maybe that's fine. Maybe it's just having the illusion that we're getting closer and closer is all we really need. Okay, so that's the takedown of AI, and that's why I'm bored of it right now. I'm going to talk really quick about receiving feedback when people are boners. Yeah, that's right. You ever get feedback from someone who's a boner? What do you do with that? So this is our friend of the show, Simon's suggestion. Thank you very much, Simon, for this suggestion. He wrote to me a couple of weeks ago and said, hey, I've got a topic. I'd like to humbly request a topic for your show. And I was like, amazing. And then he didn't say anything. And then yesterday I was like, dude, what happened? He's like, oh, it was just a personal thing and I overcame it. I was like, well, but I bet I would love to hear it. And he shared with me. I was like, oh, it's such a fantastic topic. So if you have anything like that, where you're like, it's a personal thing, I've got it, it's overcome, I'd still love to hear it. I love these sort of opportunities to jam on something that is meaningful for someone else, because they're usually very meaningful for me too. So as you get better at delivering feedback, or even if you suck at delivering feedback, one of the things that'll happen is you start to notice what is needed to deliver good feedback. I've done a lot of work over here with myself and then in training others in becoming powerful in their listening and their speaking in a way that gets heard. And speaking in a way that gets heard is not just about how you project your voice or how you hold your body. It's also about your ability to understand what you are speaking into and how to talk and use words and hold an energy that meets what is already there. In Landmark, they call this the already always on listening. For example, I'm like a tall, middle-aged, white, some would say handsome man, which for some people, they're already always on listening is the first thing they're going to see is privilege. And that is going to create a particular listening that they have for me. They're going to hear me through that lens, whether that's conscious or not, whether that's something they should or should not be doing is irrelevant. It's just there. It's the background. It's the lens. It's the water that we're swimming in. And so if I want to be an effective speaker, I have to be alive to that. Now, some people will say, screw it. It's not my job. I don't have to worry about that. If someone is able to hear me, great. And if not, great. That's how powerful I am. That's fine until you have to achieve something for which being able to meet, connect, contact with those people is a necessity, at which point now your leadership is hamstrung by your story about yourself, by your identity. So learning how to speak, that's an important part of this. So I've done a lot of work in that, and I understand that delivering feedback is really like, there's a lot of how do I provide this feedback in a way that gets heard? How do I provide feedback in a way that people can receive, they can listen to it? And how do I listen to feedback in a way that lets it land over here? So as you get better at that, what you start to notice is a lot of people really suck at giving feedback. They're indirect, they're passive about it, they're passive aggressive, or they just dump it on you. And more often than not, what happens is people deliver feedback from their complaint, from their judgment of what you did. So that's sort of like, you came to work and you didn't smile and you didn't say hello to me 5 days in a row. This is a silly example I'm fabricating, so just hang out with me in it because it's an analogy more so than a direct example. And because of that, I've started to conclude you're just a person who doesn't care about other people. And then the 360 review comes around and people are asking like, what's your experience of Adam's leadership? And the person that had that thing with me is like, well, Adam doesn't really care about people and he's kind of callous and blah, blah, blah. So what's happening is that the person delivering that feedback they are completely unconscious of their own stories, their own, like, who I am for them. Maybe they have an uncle when they were a kid who kind of sounded or energetically felt like me, and he never said hello, and he was callous and blah, 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 blah. And therefore now they're projecting all that on me. It would be amazing. It'd be amazing if most people showed up and did the hard work of being able to discern that before they offered feedback. But 99.9% of people in the world aren't. They're giving you feedback through the lens of their own undistinguished stories and context and beliefs and all of that. And if you do any work in leadership or you do any work at all in being conscious about your own stuff, you're going to see that in their feedback. You're going to be like, well, this is their stuff. So how do we receive feedback when people are boners like that? That's an example of being a boner. Boners to boner. In those instances, you've got some work to do as a leader. And the first piece of work is to get clear on what your commitment is. Most people, your highest commitment, I should say. So most people, their highest commitment is like to themselves. It's sort of like, I let in what feels real and I don't let in anything else. Or like, sometimes it'll be like, I take the feedback from the people that are good at delivering it. And what they can't see is that is a highest commitment towards, it's like the highest commitment is towards what's comfortable or what they know. And then secondarily is towards their leadership. And that's okay. The trap is they haven't distinguished that for themselves. They're not clear on that's actually what their commitment is. They would tell you my highest commitment is leadership. And then they qualify it. So it's all fine and good. But if that's someone's highest commitment, that's distinct. And that's going to knock it, makes them a less effective leader in a lot of situations. If your highest commitment is, I want to better myself as a leader, then from that stand, that internal stance, you've got some work to do when you get feedback from people that are boners. Those two internal stances, I hope you can hear. The one is like, I receive the feedback from the people that I trust or whatever, or that do the work or that don't bring their own shit into the space or whatever you want to call it. That's fine. You're just going to get less. You get less signal. But the signal you get is going to be more comfortable to receive. And thus it's going to preserve your highest stand, which is towards comfort, familiarity, and then leadership after that. if you're someone who's committed to rising to be the cleanest, most profound leader that they can be, then it's going to bring more discomfort. And you've got an annoying job, which is sometimes people are going to give you feedback. They're going to suck at providing it. And now what? So we're going to work with that second stance, because that's the one in which it's like, all right, my commitment here is to pull the gold out of this garbage that's been handed to me. And I would say there's two parts that are really important here. Once we're clear on our internal stance, if you're not interested in the stance I'm talking about, then you don't have any more work to do. And the question, well, what do I do when I get this feedback? You do whatever you feel like doing, but you probably just dismiss it and do your best not to let it bother you. That's the move from like that first stance. From the second stance, the first move is to recognize it's probably going to be upsetting getting feedback like that. And the first thing I see most leaders fail at doing is to allow themselves permission to be upset. Most of the leaders I work with that are operating at the highest level have made a career and a successful leadership trajectory out of being unflappable, untouched. And so when they get feedback like that, what happens is, one, it's upsetting. And it's always going to be upsetting having someone project their junk onto you. I don't care if you're Gandhi or Buddha or whatever. There is a human part of us that, like, anytime someone sort of slimes us with their stuff, anytime someone gets on us, their stuff, as though it's like ours, there is a degree of like, ick to it. And a lot of leaders are unwilling to accept this about themselves. So they get into conversations like an intellectual explanation to themselves about why they don't need to feel icky, trying to get the ick off that way. Another one is they just kind of compartmentalize themselves and just operate from their head and don't let them, they don't have to feel the feeling that is alive in them, which is ick. And when that's what's happening internally, you can't really take the next step, because all of that stuff creates this internal tug of war, which is, I feel icky, but I shouldn't. And so now you're screwed, because you're in opposition to yourself. On the one hand, I feel gross, but on the other hand, I shouldn't, and therefore, and then any attempt to receive feedback is done over top of that lack of integrity internally, that breakdown in terms of alignment. So the first job of a leader in these situations is to really just allow themselves, like, ugh, gross. It's really slimy, disgusting. I don't like that. Only on the other side of that first job can the second part happen. And the second part is to really understand that the person over there offering the feedback, like, we have to change our reception, our own listening. And the way I find most powerful is first to understand they are completely cognitively blind to everything they're projecting onto us. They don't realize it. They can't see it. It's not done willfully. Most of us are pretty unkind in how we hold people's blindness. We hold it with a lot of like willfulness. We assign a lot of volition to it. Well, they're doing it on purpose. How could they not see it? It's so obvious. Yeah, you have a version of that too. We all do. That's why we're all hypocrites. That's what it is to be a human, is we have a big old, huge blind spot, and everyone else can see it so clearly, and we just keep dumping it on people and we don't get it. So we kind of have to have a lot of grace for them and realize, like, okay, this isn't intentional. They can literally not see. And if I separate out the charge that they're putting onto me, what is the actual meat that's there for me? So if someone says, like, I'm cold and callous and I don't care about them, they're assigning some interpretations to what's happening, right? The third thing I can do as a leader is I can separate my intention from my impact. So my intention in the moment, I might be like, well, I was really busy on those days and I was super stressed out about work and it's not my fault. That's all about intention. Of course, I didn't intend to leave this person feeling callous. Of course, I didn't intend to upset them. Of course. But my impact, nevertheless, was that I left them feeling that way. And I don't have to make that something to blame myself for. I can just make that data. Oh, got it. So the impact, even though it was totally not intended, even though I would never want to leave someone that way, is that I left them feeling uncared for, unappreciated, and like I didn't care about them. And that's the piece of feedback that we can sit with. we can sit with it without making ourselves wrong for it, without making them wrong for giving it. We can separate out their projection, and we can just be like, part of the way I left someone feeling was uncared for. And that becomes really, really valuable feedback, because it's like, oh, cool. Well, that's something I can start to look for. And I don't have to create the meaning that they have around it. You know, they might be like, and Adam feels this way because he's arrogant and he thinks he's better than everyone and blah, blah, blah. That's all their interpretation. I don't have to take that on. But the piece that I can really get is like, regardless of why they are assigning interpretation, like why they think I did this, the impact I left them in, which was not intended on my part, was that I left them feeling uncared for. And like they didn't matter to me. And that's something that I don't want to do. And if I can extract, if I can transmute that piece of feedback into that gold nugget, now I have something I can really work with, because I can start to go into my life and just pay attention to the other situation. Hey, Vera, to their situations where I'm like, oh, maybe here's a situation where I might be creating that same impact. And the more you start to be alive and able to see those situations, the more you then begin to be able to be responsible for them and to change them. You can start to be like, okay, got it. Here's another place where I'm doing that. Maybe I'm going to actually try something different. Or maybe I'm going to pause and say, hey, I just realized like I've been super stressed out at work lately, and I'm really sorry. I feel like you've said hi to me 5 times and I've just walked right by you. I'm so sorry for that. All of that becomes available once we stop making it significant how we left someone, and we start letting it just be a piece of data. Here's the other cool thing about this. You can get that data like, okay, I'm leaving people feeling insignificant and like I don't care. And you can really let that in, and then you can decide, and right now is not the time I'm going to do something about that. That's available too. Okay. All right. So we've defeated AI in this live show today. That's handled. AI dead. And then we've helped you receive feedback from boners. So I think all in all, pretty productive little live show. Nice to see you, Vera. Nice to see whoever. We got up to 20 viewers, and my theory is it reaches a point on YouTube where people are like, who's this guy? What's he saying? And then they hang out for 20 seconds. They're like, ah, they move. Well, I'll just get the AI summary later. So I think that's what's happening. But yeah, we hit 20 people. That counts. Have an amazing weekend. I hope your Friday is really, really good. I'm off to get a haircut, and then I'm going to go and have some drinks with some friends. And then tomorrow I'm going to play Magic the Gathering. And then I'm heading to the exotic land of Ohio, where I hear it's, someone sent me a thing that said record heat, record smoke, record diarrhea. I think because there's like a bunch of food poisoning or something like contamination. So I'm off to the land of heat, smoke, and diarrhea. I hope you are off to somewhere as exotic as I am. Have an amazing weekend. See y'all later.